Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here, and today we're going to talk about low back pain with putting. Not only are we going to go through the causes, but we're going to talk a little bit about the solutions, and we're going to go through a demonstration of an analysis I did on a recent client. Quick reminder, I'm certified by Titleist Performance Institute to work with golfers like you. Got all kinds of other credentials, but you can check the description of the video for that. So the first thing that I want to do with anyone who's having pain while putting is I want to get some video of them putting. And I care a lot about their setup posture, which you see here. So this is him aligned. We can see where the hole's at, which is important. So we have to know where his aim is. And then we're going to work off of this. So one of the first things I look at is whether they have a lack of hinge or an unbalanced hinge. So when we set up in our posture to putt, what happens is we have our midline, and then our butt goes behind the midline and our shoulders drop forward. We need a balance of those two. So this line here is that midline. And the butt's going to go posterior. I'm going to draw a line on the butt. The shoulders are going to drop forward, and I'm going to draw a line right through the shoulders. Then I put some extra dotted lines here to compare those to one another. So we want those to be roughly even. There is some difference in body proportions. Some people are longer torsoed, longer legs, and that does make a difference. That's a little bit more of the minutia here, but what you want to see is roughly even, or that the butt is not quite as far off that line as the shoulders are. And the reason is because there's more mass to our lower body, so we don't have to push it as far away to shift their center of gravity back as we would have to drop the upper body forward. So this is a recent adjustment for him. So it is a better position than he started in. So I do like the hinge, and what we're going to do is we're going to monitor for a short period of time. But I've got in my notes that if we want to continue switching things, one of the things we're going to do is look at getting into a little bit of a deeper hinge there to offset more of that forward shift from the shoulders. From there, we're going to look at, usually a rounded posture can cause neural tension. I won't go into what that is in the video, but if you just have this extreme feeling of tightness, especially if it's your entire back as opposed to just your lower back, then you want to look at something like this with neural tension. I'm going to draw one line off the lower back, and I want most of that lower back to be along that line. His rib cage starts about here, so he definitely has that whole lower back on the line, and when people hinge well, they typically do. And then you've got this top line that I draw to line up with the thoracic spine, and I either want the head on that line or a little bit closer to it. So in this gentleman's case, I'm going to note that it's away from that line. But because he's talking about lower back pain and not neck pain, it's not going to be one of my first adjustments. If he's starting to have neck pain or has a history of neck pain, that's when we'll get into that a little bit. But again, first we want to make sure that's an issue. We've already changed stuff on him, so we've got to give him a week or two to see how that works out before we start tweaking everything. The last thing you want to do is just change a million things at once. From there, we're going to look at excess lumbar lordosis, which is something he does not have. But if you take a picture of yourself putting or of someone else putting, what you will see a lot of times is that if you draw this line off of here, you'll see actually a gap where their back is kind of scooped out. That position requires a lot of muscle contraction and results in a lot of compression in the lower lumbar spine. So if someone's setting up to putt, and a lot of times they've been told they should flatten out their back, but they will over-exaggerate that, and it creates all this tension in the lower back that creates a lot of problem. It can actually be really common in setup with full swing shots as well. So I want to see the amount of lumbar lordosis and make sure it's not excessive. Eyes not aligned. Now what I'm not going to talk about here is where to put your eyes as far as the best putting performance. That can be one individual. Two, it can be different based on eye dominance. So when I'm talking about this, I'm purely talking a pain perspective. And what I want to see is that ball somewhere between the top of the head and the chin. Because as we start getting outside of those ends, like say the chin's out there. Almost always if the chin is out there, the person's shoulders are going to be too far forward and not counteracted by a posterior shift of the hips. And if it starts to get under the chin, a lot of times that person is so close and upright, they're creating all this extra tension through their body and especially through their lower back. So I want to kind of fall between these two lines here. Elbow position is going to be another big one. So the difficult thing with elbow position is that you can have too much bend or you can have too little bend. So if you ever just stand up, and I'm going to do this here, and if I turn to my side, I'm just going to let my arm naturally hang, and I'm going to get my jacket out of the way. That natural amount of bend when I'm standing there is about what I want to putt with. If you start putting with a lot of elbow bend, you're usually holding way too much tension in your elbows, in your forearms, and in your grip. And if you are jamming your arms all the way straight, then you're probably holding tension in your tricep and the posterior part of your forearm. So this also can also kind of tie into tennis elbow and golfer's elbow too. So you just want to see a nice relaxed bend. If I was grading his, I would say this is probably a little bit more than I like. It's almost like you can see him pushing his elbows back toward his hips as opposed to coming off of this line here. But again, we've made changes, and I really encourage you, when you make some changes, give yourself a week or two, a few practice sessions to sort it out before getting too aggressive with the next steps. Knee bend is a very similar one to elbow bend, which is why I wanted to put it right after. You just want a comfortable amount. Can you have too much knee bend? Certainly. I think that's pretty rare. What's more typical is pushing your knees hyperextended and overextending them. It's where they're like locked dead straight. And when you do that, you don't have any ability to absorb any force in that posture. And especially once you go into that stroke and you add the weight shift, there's no ability for the body to absorb because it's like you're standing on two peg legs, and that can transfer that force up to the lower back as well. Overbracing. Now this one's kind of a subtle one. This is actually probably one of my least favorite cues in golf. As a physical therapist, it's one of my least favorite as well. A lot of times what happens is people get so focused on the position of their back and their spine that they overbrace. So this isn't something you can see, hence the graphic there. It's more of something you have to talk to the person about and see if they are trying to create excess tension in their abdominal muscles. Because at the end of the day, if we're trying to do something athletic, swinging smooth and easy is the key. And if you don't swing smooth and easy, you're almost always going to dissipate force poorly. So this is for putting, this is for full swing. If you're standing over the ball and trying to feel like you're squeezing your abs, I can almost guarantee you're not going to make a free, smooth swing. Now, not only is that important for consistent contact, but if you want power, you've got to swing free. If you want to use the efficient, elastic qualities of your muscles and tendons, which are important in max speed generation, then you've got to swing free. You cannot create this excess tension in your body. In fact, I typically encourage people to find a quality setup with the absolute minimal amount of tension. So again, that's kind of the checklist here for putting. Again, these are things for putting without pain. I strongly recommend you work with an instructor and a physical therapist if you're having, especially a TPI certified physical therapist, if you're having trouble with back pain during any type of golf, because you want to be able to come at it from both the biomechanics, movement analysis angle, and from the swing perspective. I've got several coaches in the area that I work with for that exact reason. We'll even do joint lessons together to make sure our clients have the best chance to succeed. If you have any questions, please reach out, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I do also want to say that I've got a little bit of open time and travel coming up. If anyone wants to send video of themselves putting to my email, digitalgolfdoc@gmail.com. Feel free to do so, and I can give you a breakdown. I'll throw it up on YouTube, and we can all learn a little something from it. Thanks.